Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we are all about emotional regulation this week. We've got a great week in store for you, so if you like what I have to say, hit subscribe so that you can keep up to date with us. Every day is a new discussion. An emotional regulation week, we're looking at the different aspects of emotional dysregulation in the family and how invalidating environments in the family and how our sibling interactions, internal family systems kind of create the way we are and how we act or react. Then we're just going to look at other invalidating environments, and there are 7 characteristics or 7 types of invalidating environments. We're going to explore all of those. We're going to look at individuation and individualization. What's the difference and what's the similarities, and how does that help us to get out of these invalidating environments? We're going to look at and understand what codependency is, and then we're going to round out the week with how this all relates, emotional regulation with success. So stay tuned, hit that like button, and here we go. I'm really excited. Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we are talking about codependency and our big week of emotional regulation. So much to cover this week, so let's dive right in. You've probably heard it. It is pop psychology. Codependent. They're so codependent. When we have addiction, we have codependency. There's so many ways in which we are finding ourselves in these codependent relationships. So let's figure out why we're there. So codependency is this unhealthy connection with others, usually stemmed by some type of insecure or anxious attachment or thoughts. It's trying to build this reliance with somebody else as a way of securing your space in their life. Love bombing, codependency. Excessive need to please, codependency. Low self-worth, difficulty setting boundaries, emotional enmeshment, fear of conflict, caretaking at a cost, and rescuing behaviors are all signs and symptoms of codependency. And on the flip side to that, we can have healthy care, which is kind of the opposite action. It's rooted in this mutual respect, emotional balance, and a sense of individuality within a relationship. I tell my clients all the time, especially couples, the healthiest relationship that you can have are 2 strong, individuated individuals who come together to purposefully share in these shared experiences, to purposely connect in these shared experiences. Individuated selves who purposely connect in shared experiences. It is not codependent. It is not plopping down on the couch and both people scrolling on their phone mindlessly. It is not you're going out, so you're having a date, but you're all on your phone playing individually. It is having that intentional, purpose-driven connection. When you have those shared experiences, you're not forcing the shared experiences because you're afraid that if you do something outside of it, they won't love you anymore. But rather, I go do my thing, you go do your things. Let's meet up on this time at this date, and let's have a meaningful engagement. There's healthy boundaries and a healthy care. There's a lot of priority with self-care. There's empathy. There's reciprocity. So we want to see that, amongst the 2, there are key aspects between the boundaries, the motivation to help, the self-care, the emotional responsibility, the level of conflict, and the independence. Conflict in a codependent relationship is either at a personal cost or it's avoidant. Healthy care and being in a healthy relationship really looks like it's constructive and it's openly discussed. There's no need to be fearful of it or avoidant of it. And so how we want to shift from one to the other is we want to have self-awareness. We want to learn to set boundaries. Boundaries are a good thing. We need boundaries. We like boundaries. Predictability. We like predictability. Life is chaotic. The more predictable, the better. We want to encourage responsibility in others. We want to give people ownership so that they can own their space. Codependency also looks like, God, I feel like I do everything. I do the dishes. I do the work. I do the kids. I do I do it all. It's codependency. You're doing it all because you choose to do it all. And I know you're going to say, well, I've given them a chance and they don't do it. I guarantee you, if you ignored some of those chores, somebody will pick them up. But right now, and it takes a while to learn that they can trust you to go in and do those chores for you. We have what is called Cartman's Triangle when it comes to codependency. When you are in an interaction with somebody who is occupying, their past is occupying their present, they will implicitly ask you to engage in their perceived reality. Go back to Cartman Triangle. It was several weeks ago we talked about this. And what it is it's savior, victim, and persecutor. It's creating this sense that no matter what you do, whether you are the savior or the enabler, or you the persecutor, if somebody wants to be a victim, they're going to put you on one of those things and they're going to ask you to occupy that role. The only way to get out of it is to ground and allow them to contend with their emotional dysregulation. But if you buy into it, which we often do because we're implicitly asked, and that feels real for some reason, it feels real in our mind, it makes sense, then we just keep falling into those toxic patterns. A part of codependency is having addiction, and we'll have addiction to anything. If you have an addiction, you do have a codependent relationship. And if you have an addicted mind, then you keep an addicted mind until you break free from that codependent state. Codependency is that reliance on escapism, so you don't have to deal with your distressing feelings. So just because you stop using doesn't mean that you've lost the addicted mind. It doesn't mean that you're codependent. It means that you're no longer using. So understand that addiction and codependency are always interlocked. I know that's a dichotomous statement, but it is the truth. It's an absolute. I wouldn't call it dichotomy. I will call it an absolute. So let's look at love as an addiction cycle. Oftentimes we use relationships for avoidance, and we often, when we are codependent, will definitely use relationships. So if you have yet to break free from a relationship, you just go from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, you are probably addicted to love. And a part of that is this fantasy idolization. The individual forms an idolized vision of what love of their of love or what their partner is. And it's based on unrealistic expectations. It's just this fantasy that they create so they can get out of whatever distress they're in. And then the relationship with the person becomes the center of their world, promising to fill emotional voids and heal their inner wounds. It's a pattern of escapism and avoidance. There's an intense pursuit and infatuation of that partner, putting all of their experiences into it. It's obsessive. They'll have the euphoria to keep driving the pursuit, and having controlling or overly accommodating behaviors. That's that codependency. And that comes when you overattach and are clingy. And then you find this disillusionment and conflict. As reality sets in, the partner or relationship fails to meet idolized expectations and often results in feelings of resentment or betrayal or disappointment, which then creates a withdrawal or an emotional low for the addict. The end of the relationship or even emotional distance will trigger feelings of worthlessness, despair, or deep loneliness. This emotional withdrawal mirrors symptoms of addiction withdrawal. It really does kind of create this kind of like, I got an itch. So what do? We relapse. We find somebody else to fill those needs, to give us that euphoria, and we continue the cycle over and over again. Step one on breaking this is acknowledging that there's a problem. We are doing this. We are a relationship hopper, and it is what it is. No judgment, no shame in the game. We are a relationship hopper. So let's find what the root cause is. What am I ultimately distressed about? Is it childhood neglect? Is it a feeling of abandonment? Is it trauma, unmet emotional needs? Working to find what that is and having therapy or coaching is a really good way to figure out what's going on with that. I do have 15-minute free wellness insights. This is a great way to use it. Click in the video description box to schedule one. Build self-awareness. Understand what your capacity is and where your triggers are so that you know how to be on top of your tendencies. And then find your individuation. We just did a whole video on individuation, so go back and find your individuation. Set those boundaries, know where your circle is and what your values are in the circle and outside. And looking at the key steps, part one will help you to build what that circle is. Then find delay gratification. Stop getting into these dopamine pools and start finding other ways to have more delay gratification as you engage in this euphoria building for yourself and not through others. Seek support systems. Find people that will have healthy boundaries with you. And then find some ways to educate yourself. Understand what healthy love is and what healthy love isn't. And break this fantasy mindset. Stop putting things into these categories and instead break free. Find what serves you and not what is perceived, and getting into these perceived reality cycles. This often comes through childhood because of emotional neglect. It comes because of abandonment, and that's okay. Our traumas and our stresses in childhood are coded from childhood. So just because we've coded it as highly stressful and disengaged, we want to look at, and therapy will help you look at all the nuances around it. It's not trying to make people bad in your life. It's trying to understand that people are human and they have only certain capacities. And when you over provide for what you think their capacity is, that dissonance, that's two different truths. Finding a middle between those truths is how we heal our past and how we heal our present. Insecure attachment and that fear of abandonment, and so that over control and that codependence is where a lot of this stems from. And so the more that we are self-reliant, go to the previous video, the better we're going to be to get out of these toxic interfaces. And then it's all about recovery. Remember that we are all on the spectrum of recovery. Sometimes we are healing, sometimes we are relapsing, but every day we fight like heck to stay present. I am Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Thank you very much.